It was a little after midnight when I turned on the transmitter. The sound of static filled the room like a heartbeat, steady and hollow. That's how every night started. My name's Daniel. I volunteer for the small-town emergency radio service here in Mill Creek. Population, maybe 2,000 on a good day. Fewer now, since the factory closed. The radio station's just a small concrete room attached to the fire department. 2 chairs, 1 window, a red light that never turns off, and a smell of old coffee soaked into the floor. I've been doing midnight shifts for about 6 months. Mostly boring work. Listen for distress calls, answer test transmissions, jot notes into the logbook. But I liked it. There was something peaceful about the quiet hours when the town was asleep. The hum of the equipment always felt alive, like the air itself was listening with me. That night was colder than usual. The old wall heater wasn't working again, and my breath made faint clouds when I spoke. The clock above the door ticked loud enough to fill the silence between every breath. I remember looking out the window toward Main Street. Empty. No headlights, no footsteps. Just the orange glow of the street lamps. And a single dog wandering between trash bins. It was 12:13 a.m. when I logged my first entry. Station 14 on air. Weather clear. No traffic on channel 7 through 12. I leaned back in my chair, cracked my fingers, and waited for the hours to drag by. Usually, truckers passing through would ping us. Quick check-ins, short-range CB calls. Sometimes a bored officer from the county sheriff's post would call in a prank. But that night, there was nothing. Just the deep hum of electricity and that endless, breathing static. Around 12:40, I poured myself another cup of coffee. That's when I heard it. At first, I thought it was a trick of the sound. A soft pulse between frequencies. Faint, rhythmic, like someone trying to speak through water. I adjusted the dial slowly, letting the static stretch and twist until there it was, a voice. Weak, distant, looping. Is anyone out there? Then static. Then again. Is anyone out there? The same phrase, exactly the same tone, again and again. I froze, my hand hovering over the dial. My first thought was probably some kid messing around with a shortwave. We got that sometimes. Teenagers with cheap transmitters playing Ghost. But something about the voice made my stomach tighten. It wasn't playful. It was tired, broken, and it sounded close. I leaned toward the microphone. Station 14 to unidentified caller. Copy your message. Static. Station 14, do you need assistance? Over. The loop stopped. For a moment, the air felt thick. I waited, headset pressed tight against my ears. Nothing. Then faint breathing. Slow, unsteady. I could hear it through the hiss of static, like someone standing too close to the mic. I wrote the time in my logbook. 12:43 a.m., unknown signal on Channel 9. The breathing grew louder for a few seconds, then faded again. Then that same phrase returned, only softer. Is anyone out there? This time it wasn't looping. It sounded like someone actually speaking. I swallowed hard and reached for the switchboard. I tried to trace the signal, to see what tower it was bouncing from. The screen flickered once, then froze. No coordinates. That wasn't possible. Every transmission had a signature. Even pirate radios leave digital traces. I ran a test ping through a network. No response. For a long time, I just sat there listening. The voice would go quiet, then start again. Sometimes it whispered. Sometimes it cracked, like whoever it was kept drifting away from the mic, then crawling back. Is anyone out there? Please. I tried again. Station 14. Identify yourself. No answer. Do you need help? What's your location? The voice cut in immediately, sharper now. I can't find the road. That's when the hairs on my arms lifted, because I hadn't asked about a road. I turned to the window. The street was still empty, but the static began to swell, louder and harsher, until it sounded like the signal was inside the room. Then silence. Total silence. Even the hum of the radio stopped. I tapped the equipment, checked the breakers. Everything was fine, but the sound was gone, like someone had pulled the air out of the room. When the system restarted, the first thing I saw on the screen was the incoming ID tag. Source, 14. That was my station number. I stared at it for a long time, unsure if my brain was just tired, but the message repeated. Source, 14 signal strength, local. The transmission was coming from inside the station. The mic light flickered on by itself. A low hum filled the speakers, rising into that same faint voice. But now, I could hear background noise, the scrape of a chair, the rustle of paper, sound that matched exactly what I was doing. Is anyone out there? I turned off the mic. The red light stayed on. Please respond. My hands trembled as I unplugged the transmitter, but the sound didn't stop. The radio was dead, yet the voice kept playing through the static. That's when I realized it wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was coming from the hallway outside. I stood up slowly, heart pounding, listening to the muffled echo of my own breathing replaying from somewhere beyond the door. The emergency lights flickered overhead. One by one, they dimmed. The hallway stretched out, long, narrow, lined with doors that led to storage rooms and supply closets. At the end of it, the exit sign glowed weakly red. I took a step forward, then another. The floorboards creaked. My shadow moved across the wall, and beside it, another shadow followed, slightly out of sync, as if delayed by a few seconds. I turned fast, but no one was there. From the end of the hall came that whisper again. Can you hear me? The sound wasn't coming through speakers now. It was in the air itself, vibrating faintly, like the walls were breathing it out. I backed toward the control room, but the door had shut behind me. The handle was ice cold. Then the red mic light flicked back on. From the console, my own voice began to play, my same tone, my same words from just minutes ago. Station 14 to unidentified caller. Copy your message. I hadn't recorded it. Then again, my voice. Do you need help? Each line came back slightly warped, slowed down, like someone replaying a memory that didn't belong to them. I reached for the power switch. Before I could touch it, the transmission cut in one last time. Louder, clearer. Daniel, don't leave me here. I froze. The voice was mine. Same inflection. Same breath. It was like listening to a recording of myself begging for help. The mic light turned off. And just like that, silence again. Only the faint ticking of the clock above the door. It read 2:14 a.m. When I looked down at the logbook, the last entry wasn't mine. The handwriting was identical, but shakier. 2:14 a.m. Response received. End of transmission. I packed up and left the station before dawn. When I came back the next night, the radio tower's logs had been wiped clean. The technician told me there hadn't been a signal on Channel 9 in over 10 years. I never told him what I heard, but every now and then, when I drive past a fire department after midnight, I swear I see that red light in the window flicker once, like someone's still there, waiting for me to respond. I didn't sleep the day after it happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red light flickering on the mic, and every time I heard my own voice whispering back to me through static. I told myself it was exhaustion. Too much caffeine, too little sleep. That's all. Still, when I got back to the station the next night, my hands were shaking. The heater was finally working, humming low in the corner, but the air felt colder than before, like the room itself remembered what had happened. The other volunteer, Mike, had left a note taped to the console. Test the channels. Weird interference last night. He didn't say what kind, but I could tell by the handwriting, hurried uneven, that he'd heard something too. The clock ticked 12:01 a.m. I sat down, plugged in my headset, and tried to sound calm in the log. Station 14 on air. All channels clear. It wasn't true. I could already hear faint noise under static. A low hum like breathing through a wall. I switched frequencies. Channel 7. Clear. Channel 11. Clear. Then Channel 19. That's where I found it. A faint crackle at first. Then the hiss broke open into a voice. Help, anyone? It wasn't looping this time. It sounded real. The kind of voice that strains through pain or panic. Station 14 responding. I said, leaning toward the mic, identify yourself. What's your emergency? Silence. Then, through the noise, can't find the road. My chest tightened. The same words from the night before. But this time, I recognized something in the voice. Not the tone, exactly. The rhythm of it. The way it paused between words. I froze. It sounded like a woman I used to know. Her name was Rachel. We went to high school together. She used to work part-time at the diner down the street. She disappeared 9 years ago on her way home after the late shift. No trace. No call. No body. And now, here she was, or something that sounded like her, whispering through static at midnight. "Coal, please." I almost dropped the mic. It didn't make sense. It couldn't. I tried to trace the signal on the screen, watching the waveform blink across the display. It wasn't bouncing from any known tower. It was repeating from a single locked coordinate, latitude 35.119 N, longitude 86.773 W. My stomach turned when I looked it up. That was the old Miller Quarry. It had been closed for years after the accident that buried 3 workers alive. Rachel's name was one of the memorial plaques outside. Rachel, I said before I could stop myself. "If you can hear me, I'm here." Static swallowed the room. Then faintly, "You left me there." My blood ran cold. "No," I whispered. "I didn't. You went missing. You stopped looking." I ripped off the headset, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The signal was still coming through the speakers. Stronger now, almost alive. "Help, please. I can't find the road." Her voice cracked into a sob, and behind it came other sounds. Overlapping whispers, dozens of them. Men, women, children, all speaking over each other, calling out names, gasping for help. For a second, I thought the radio had glitched, but the sound moved like it was aware of me. When I stepped back, the voices grew quieter. When I leaned in, they grew louder, eager. Then I noticed something worse. Every voice was saying the same phrase in different tones. "Is anyone out there? Anyone out there? Out there?" I could hear it crawling through every channel. Even when I turned off the power, the sound didn't stop. That's when I realized the transmission wasn't coming to the station anymore. It was coming from it. I grabbed my flashlight and went into the equipment room, the one behind the sound booth that smelled like burnt dust and old oil. The main console lights were flickering erratically, and on the far side of the room, the backup generator, the one that hadn't worked in years, was vibrating slightly, like something inside it was trying to get out. The radio tone was echoing from the metal. I walked closer, light shaking in my hand, and pressed my ear near the surface. Through the faint hum, I could hear voices again, distant, muffled, like they were trapped behind a wall of concrete. "Daniel, my name. Channel 19, keep it open." I stumbled backward. That wasn't Rachel this time. That was me, my own voice, repeating words I hadn't said yet. The sound grew distorted, rising in pitch until it became a high whine that made my teeth ache. I hit the kill switch, cutting power to the entire building. Darkness. The static died, but the whisper didn't. It lingered in the air like breath on glass. I backed into the hall, flashlight beam bouncing across the walls. I just needed to leave, get outside, clear my head, but when I reached the front door, the exit light was flickering again, and beneath it, something scratched across the inside of the glass. It looked like letters at first, but when I got close enough to see, I realized they were frequencies. 19.0719.1319.19. 3 variations of Channel 19. My flashlight died right then, plunging me into a silence so heavy it pressed against my ears. Then, a sound I'll never forget. The radio in the control room turned itself back on. Even with the power off, I could see the faint glow through the hallway window, that red mic light again, and through the speaker, clear as day. "You found me?" I couldn't move. The voice wasn't Rachel anymore. It was deeper now, slower. A man's voice, rough, scraping, like someone speaking through a mouthful of dust. "You kept the channel open." I turned toward the sound, drawn in like something pulling on a string behind my ribs. My body moved on its own. When I stepped back into the booth, every frequency was active. The monitors filled with waveforms twisting together, forming patterns like heartbeat spikes. Each pulse sounded like a breath. And in that noise beneath the static, I could hear names. Rachel, Tom, Ellen, Jake, all people who'd gone missing from Mill Creek over the last decade. Then one more name joined them, my own, Daniel. The lights above me dimmed. My reflection in the glass looked different, pale, wide-eyed, mouth moving even though I wasn't speaking. Then, faintly from the speakers, "You hear us now," every voice, all of them, spoke in unison. Hundreds layered on top of each other until it was no longer sound, just vibration. Keep the road open. I fell to my knees, covered my ears, but it was inside me, vibrating through my chest, through my bones. And then it stopped. Everything went dead. The only thing left was the hum of the heater and the faint drip of water from a pipe overhead. When the lights finally flickered back on, all the equipment screens showed one message. Channel locked, 19. The system wouldn't respond. No matter what I pressed, the number stayed frozen there, 19, glowing faintly like a heartbeat. It's been 2 nights since then. I haven't gone back, but the radio in my truck keeps turning on by itself around midnight. Always the same static. Always the same frequency. Last night, I swear I heard my own voice again. It said, "You're almost here," and when I looked in the rear view mirror for a split second, I thought I saw headlights behind me, faint and buried in static. I told myself I wouldn't go back. After what happened with Channel 19, I swore I'd hand over the keys, pack up my things, and be done with the radio station for good. But 3 nights later, I was standing at the door again, fumbling with the lock like a man walking into his own grave. I didn't know what I was looking for. Answers, maybe, or proof that I wasn't losing my mind. But deep down, I think I just wanted to hear it again. That voice. My voice. The hallway smelled the same. Old paper, cold metal, burnt coffee. Everything exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. The red on-air light above the booth door was already glowing. That light should only come on when the transmitter is live. No one else had access. I was supposed to be the only one with a key. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The radio equipment hummed quietly, the faint static whispering through the speakers like distant rain. Every channel knob was turned to 19. All right, I said under my breath, pretending I wasn't terrified. Let's end this. I sat down at the desk, headset trembling in my hands. The moment I put it on, I heard breathing. Not my own, slower, steadier. Someone else was already on the line. I tried to speak, but before I could, my voice came through the static first. Station 14 copy. Testing signal strength. I froze. Those were the exact words I was about to say. My mouth was still open, but the sentence had already been spoken. A chill crawled up my neck. I whispered, "Who is this?" And again, a half second before the words left my lips, my own voice replied, "Who is this?" It was like an echo that moved faster than sound. Like the air knew what I was going to say before I did. My pulse hammered in my ears. I tried again. Identify yourself. Identify yourself. Same tone. Same timing. Only the voice on the radio always spoke a moment first. Perfectly in sync with everything I thought. Just ahead of me. I sat there, paralyzed, as the voice kept mirroring me in a steady, unnatural rhythm. No distortion. No lag. Just anticipation. Finally, I whispered, "Why are you doing this?" And the voice said, "Because it's already done." My heart skipped. That wasn't what I was going to say. I took off the headset, dropped it onto the desk, and just stared at it. The sound still came through the speakers, even though the headset mic was off. "Daniel," it said, calm and measured, "you've been trying to fix something that isn't broken." I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" "You know who I am." The voice was steady, unhurried, familiar in a way that made my chest ache, like listening to a recording of myself from years ago, softer, more hopeful. "I'm you," it said, "and I'm tired." I laughed, but it came out broken. No, that's not. "You've been here before," it interrupted. "You always come back." I looked at the clock. 12:14 a.m. The same time as the log entry from that first night. The same time the signal appeared before. My hands were shaking so badly I had to hold them together to stop the tremor. The monitors on the console flickered, waveforms flashing erratically, then stabilized into a slow, pulsing pattern that looked almost like a heartbeat. I reached for the logbook. The last entry was still there in my handwriting. 2:14 a.m. Response received. End of transmission. Only now, below it, another line had appeared in smaller letters. Repeat sequence. I didn't write that. The voice crackled again. Do you remember what you said before you died? My breath caught. What? You said, is anyone out there? Over and over, until no one answered back. The static rose around the words, wrapping them like a shroud. I could hear faint voices layered underneath. Echoes of the ones from Channel 19, each whispering my name, each repeating fragments of things I'd said nights before. The hum of the tower outside began to climb in pitch, like metal stretching under pressure. The radio lights flickered, and I smelled something sharp and burn in the air, like ozone before a storm. Then I heard my own voice again, but older, ragged, desperate. Please, someone, I can't find the road. The same words that had started everything. The same voice I'd mistaken for Rachel. The realization hit me so hard I felt sick. It was never her. It was me, my voice, my own transmission. I don't understand. I whispered. The voice on the radio laughed softly. You're transmitting across the loop. You've always been doing it. I'm not. You died in that room, Daniel. The words were so calm they barely sounded like a threat. But something deep inside me recoiled. I looked around the booth at the reflection in the glass window. Pale skin, dark circles, eyes wide and sunken. For a moment, I thought I saw a movement behind me. Another version of myself sitting there, saying the same words a split second sooner. The reflection blinked first. My throat went dry. I tried to look away, but the other me didn't. He leaned closer to the glass and whispered the same thing that came through the radio. You never stopped broadcasting. The lights overhead dimmed until only the red glow of the mic remained. It pulsed softly, like the last heartbeat of a dying machine. I wanted to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. I could feel the floor vibrating beneath me, a faint hum that matched the pattern on the waveform. Every pulse seemed to sync with my heartbeat. The voice whispered again, you have to finish the broadcast. I don't want to, I said. You already did. The air grew colder, sharp enough to sting my lungs. My breath came out white, drifting in the red light. The equipment began to rattle, drawers shaking, papers fluttering, as if something behind the walls was moving, crawling through the wires. I grabbed the mic and shouted, stop it! But the radio answered first. Stop it. Then, in unison, both of us spoke together. Stop it. The echo folded in on itself, building, looping, until it wasn't a voice anymore, just a noise that filled every corner of the room. I slammed the mic down, but the sound didn't stop. The broadcast light flashed faster, syncing with the rhythm of my racing heart. Then silence, dead air, the kind that's heavier than any noise. The monitors blinked once and filled with text. Transmission complete. File saved. Final broadcast. I backed away from the console. The air smelled of burnt wires and cold metal, but under it was something faint. Earth, maybe, or dust. I looked at the timestamp on the recording. 2:14 a.m. The same time again. Always the same. Then the speakers hissed softly. Daniel. The voice was quieter now, almost tender. You can rest now. I whispered back. Who are you? I told you. I'm the voice you left behind. Static flared once more, filling the booth with soft, whispering layers. Hundreds of me, all speaking at once, all trapped in the loop. The red light on the mic flickered 3 times, then went out. For a long time, I stood there in the dark, listening to nothing, and for the first time in weeks, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like something had ended, or maybe like something was just starting over. I didn't tell anyone what happened, didn't write it down, didn't record another log. I walked out into the cold and left the door unlocked behind me. The night was still and gray, the sky colorless. When I got to my truck, I turned the key and the radio came on by itself. No music, no static, just my voice, soft and steady. like a man reading his own obituary. Station 14 signing off. No more traffic on Channel 19. I sat there until the message ended. Then I turned off the ignition, but the radio stayed on. It whispered one last thing. The same thing I'd written in the logbook that first night. Response received. End of transmission. I looked back toward the fire station. The window above the booth glowed faintly red, and as I drove away, the signal followed me, growing weaker with each mile, until all I could hear was the faintest breath of static, like someone, somewhere, still try to answer back. They told me the night shift at Rose Hill Cemetery was quiet, for hours of stillness, a few round on the path, and a logbook to fill before sunrise. Easy money, they said. That was before I started noticing how the graves moved. The first week was uneventful enough. Cold air, the hum of security lights, the faint smell of wet soil clinging to everything. The cemetery was bigger than I expected. Sprawling hills of marble and rusted gates, sections divided by age. Section A held the oldest graves, some names worn down to smooth stone. Section D, near the woods, was newer, cleaner, emptier somehow. I spent most nights in the watchman's shed, a cramped wooden shack beside the main path. The heater didn't work, and the chair creaked like it had a spine of its own, but it was mine for the night. I kept the radio low, filled the log every hour, and tried not to think too much. The first sign of something wrong came on Thursday. It was around 2 a.m. I just finished my second round and stopped near the eastern slope, where the angel statues lined the path. Their faces caught the moonlight in that strange way, like they were looking down, but never quite in the same direction. I passed by one statue, a tall stone angel with broken wings. Its head was turned slightly to the left, eyes on the road. When I came back an hour later, it was facing the opposite way. I froze. The base was undisturbed. No footprints in the mud. No signs anyone had come through. Just the statue turned clean around, as if it had been watching something behind it. I told myself I was mistaken. Maybe I remembered wrong. Maybe fatigue was playing tricks. Still, when I wrote my hourly report, I hesitated before logging it. 1:15 a.m., patrol clear. Notice statue at marker 14 appears repositioned. Then I crossed it out. It sounded insane, even to me. By Friday, I started noticing more changes. The graves on the northern side, especially near the fence, seemed slightly off. Rows that were perfectly straight when I started now bend in odd, uneven angles, like the ground had shifted, or like something underneath had moved. I used the landmarks to check myself. The fifth headstone from the gate used to line up with the old elm tree. Now it leaned just a few inches closer, small enough that you'd only notice if you stared long enough. I stared a lot. That night, the wind picked up. Dry leaves skittered across the pavement like tiny feet. I did my round slower than usual, flashlight trembling in my hand. Every sound made me pause. The creak of branches, the crackle of gravel. But the thing that unnerved me most wasn't the noise. It was the silence that followed, the way it felt aware. Back in the shed, I tried the radio. Static. It had worked fine before. Now all I could hear was this faint, rhythmic distortion, like breathing. I remember whispering, "If anyone's out there, come in." The static hissed back. Then, just for a second, I heard what sounded like a voice. A child's voice, laughing. The heater clicked off right then. The air went still, and somewhere outside, something metallic rang out, a faint hollow clang, like a shovel hitting stone. I didn't move for a full minute. Then, against my better judgment, I stepped out. The fog had thickened, the kind that makes the world shrink to 20 feet of visibility. My flashlight barely cut through it, but I could see shadows, monuments, fences, the faint outline of the chapel in the distance. And then, something else. Near Section B, a small shape darted between the graves. Too quick to catch properly, but low to the ground. I started after it, slow, careful. Each step made the gravel crunch underfoot, loud in the stillness. When I reached the spot, there was nothing, just an open grave marker, name half erased. Emily Rhodes, 1956 to 1964. A child's grave. Fresh flowers at the base, though I hadn't seen anyone visit. The fog seemed to pull thicker there, and when I turned back toward the shed, I noticed something else. Footprints, small ones, leading away from the grave. I followed them only a few steps before they vanished into the wet ground, like whoever made them had simply stopped existing halfway across the path. Back inside, I locked the door and tried to laugh it off. People said cemeteries played tricks on the eyes. Shifting ground, fog illusions, wind erosion, all explainable. But when I looked at my logbook, the last entry was written in a different hand. A child scrawl. For words. Still here. Still cold. I didn't write it. And I never found a pen with that shade of blue ink. That was the end of my first week. And the last time I ever thought of this job as easy money. By the second week, I'd stopped sleeping properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the grave shifting again. Rows bending. Statues turning. The child's headstone sinking into the earth. And always that faint, childish laughter echoing behind it. I started my shifts earlier, hoping to get used to the place before midnight. But the later it got, the stranger things felt. It wasn't just noise anymore. It was presence. Section B had become the center of it. That's where I heard the whispers first. The night it started raining. I walked my first patrol, soaked through to the bone. My flashlight flickered from the moisture. The beam caught raindrops midair, making them look like falling stars. I reached Emily Rhodes's grave around 1 a.m. The flowers were gone. Only damp soil remained, freshly turned. Something small caught my eye beside the headstone. A single child's shoe. Mud cake, pink, laces tied neatly. I crouched down to pick it up, but the soil beside it sank slightly as if breathing. I stumbled back, heart pounding, and then I heard it, whispering, faint, like voices carried underwater. I turned off my flashlight and listened. The sound was coming from the grave. At first I thought it was the rain, but no, there were words in it. Soft, broken syllables. Cold, so cold. I stood there in the dark, my breath visible in the damp air. The whispers grew louder, now overlapping, like multiple voices murmuring at once. Men, women, children, all tangled together beneath the earth. My body moved before my mind caught up. I was already running back toward the shed when I slammed the door behind me. The sound cut off instantly. No echo, no rain, just silence. The radio flared to life on its own. No station, no voice, only static. And within that static, just barely audible, someone humming a lullaby. That's when I started keeping the recorder on. Not for proof, just to know it was real. The next night, I played the tape back. All I could hear at first was the rain, then faintly the same lullaby. Only this time, I heard my name whisper beneath it. I didn't remember saying anything during the patrol, but near the end of the tape, there was a new sound, like soil shifting, followed by a single word, whispered close to the mic. Stay. I tried to tell myself it was a glitch, interference, feedback, anything. But when I checked the recorder, the battery was dead, and the display showed a timestamp from 5 minutes after I'd already returned to the shed. Something else had been recording after me. The following night, I decided to test it. I set the recorder on Emily's grave, turned it on, and walked away. When I came back an hour later, it was still running. No one had touched it. Back inside, I played the tape. At first, it was just wind and rain. Then footsteps. Small, uneven, like a child dragging one foot through the mud. A faint giggle. And finally, a whisper right next to the mic. Watchman. My stomach turned. I replayed it again and again until I could barely breathe. That's when I noticed something at the end. My own voice, whispering back. But I hadn't spoken. I deleted the file. The nights after that felt different. Every step in section B made the ground feel soft, unstable. Sometimes I'd feel vibrations through my boots, small tremors, like something moving beneath the surface. The whispers grew bolder. By the third night, they weren't just on the ground anymore. They were in the air, around me, brushing the back of my neck. At one point, I turned sharply and caught sight of movement behind a row of graves. Something pale crouched low, watching. When I shone my light, it was gone. I wanted to quit, but when I told the supervisor, He only smiled and said, "If you can last 2 more weeks, the pay doubles." The last guy didn't. That should have been a warning. By the time dawn came, I was shaking uncontrollably. I tried to sleep after shift, but couldn't. The sound of rain on my window started to resemble the whispers. When I finally dozed off, I dreamed of soil shifting and tiny hands pressing against inside a coffin lid. I woke to find dirt under my nails. By the 3rd week, I stopped pretending this job made sense. Every patrol, every hour spent writing reports, it all felt like some performance for an audience I couldn't see. The voices never left. Even in daylight, the echoes lingered. I'd hear faint tapping from the walls of my apartment, like someone knocking from the other side. When I arrived at the cemetery that night, something felt different. The air was too still. No wind, no crickets, not even the hum of the lights. And the fog had thickened again, dense and unmoving. There was a new sign posted on the main gate. No visitors after dark. It hadn't been there before. In the shed, I found the logbook already open on the desk. The last entry wasn't mine. Same blue ink, same uneven handwriting. He's here again. I swallowed hard, stepped outside, and started my round. The graves looked wrong. Some leaned forward like they were straining to listen. The statues all faced the same direction now, toward the chapel at the far end of Section B. That's where the noise came from. A low metallic scraping, like a door dragging against stone. I should have called someone. Instead, I followed it. The chapel doors were half open. Inside, everything was coated in dust. Pews broken, altar draped in cobwebs. But the air was heavy, wet, almost breathing. The scraping stopped. Then a faint voice whispered, "Closer." I turned to leave, but something stopped me. A figure standing by the last row of pews. Small, still, head tilted upward. A little girl. Her face was pale and dirt-streaked, hair clinging to her wet cheeks. And when she smiled, it wasn't human. Too wide, too calm. "Emily," I whispered. She nodded once, then pointed to the floor beside her. There was a grave marker half buried beneath the chapel tiles. The inscription read, "Daniel Cole, 1989 to 2023. My name." The air went cold. I stumbled backward, but the pews behind me had shifted, blocking the aisle. When I looked again, she was closer. So close I could see the dirt packed beneath her fingernails. "You shouldn't have stayed," she said softly. "They always keep the ones who listen." I couldn't move. Her eyes were black pits, reflecting nothing. Behind her, the walls began to pulse like something alive. Hands, hundreds of them, pressed out from beneath the stone, reaching, clawing. I bolted, out through the chapel, across the path, lungs burning. The fog seemed to follow me, swallowing the world whole. When I reached the gate, it was locked, not just chained, sealed, as if it had never opened at all. Behind me, footsteps. Small, wet, deliberate. Watchman. Her voice was right behind my ear now. I turned. Nothing. Only the fog, thick and gray. Then, faintly, through the static hum of silence, I heard my radio crackle in the shed. Someone was speaking. My voice. "Section B, all clear." I didn't go back. I climbed the fence and ran until my lungs felt raw. When I looked back, the cemetery lights flickered one by one, until only the chapel glowed faint red. I quit that night, never returned for my last paycheck, never spoke to the supervisor again. But sometimes, when the house gets too quiet and the wind hits just right, I hear it again, a soft whisper beneath the static of my old radio. A child's voice, patient and cold. Graveyard shift complete. And beneath that, my own voice answering back. "Copy that. Section be secure." Then the sound of a small giggle and a faint scratching under the floorboards, like someone keeping watch just below my feet. I've been driving trucks for over 15 years now, long enough to know that you don't mess with shortcuts after dark, especially not on back roads that don't show up on paper. But that night, I was behind schedule. It was close to midnight. My route was supposed to keep me on Route 28 all the way to Harlan Depot. But a storm warning popped up on my GPS. Bright red triangles flashing across the screen. The voice told me to reroute. said it had saved me 40 minutes. I zoomed in and saw a thin gray line branching off through farmland. County Road 6. Only problem was my paper map didn't list any County Road 6. Just open land. I remember hesitating, staring at the map spread across the dash. Rain was starting to patter against the windshield, the wipers clicking like a heartbeat. And then the GPS said again, calm as ever, in 300 feet, turn right onto County Road 6. So I did. The road was narrow, barely wide enough for the rig. Trees closing on both sides, black silhouettes twisting under the headlights. The asphalt looked wrong somehow, too smooth, like it had just been laid down, but the edges were already cracked. After a few miles, I lost cell service. No radio either, just static. Even the CB was quiet, which was rare. I tried to tell myself it was fine. Just a detour, a few extra miles. But something about that road made my skin crawl. The trees looked strange in my mirrors, like they weren't staying still. It's hard to describe, but every time I checked, the tree line seemed a little closer, branches leaning in toward the truck. At first, I thought it was just the motion of the headlights playing tricks on me. But then I saw the lights. They started as faint pinpricks in the distance, white, almost silver. I figured maybe another vehicle was behind me. I slowed down a bit, let them catch up, but they didn't. They just stayed back there, always the same distance away, weaving between the trees. I rolled down the window to listen. No sound, no engine, no tires on the wet road, just the steady hum of my truck and that faint electrical buzz in the air. When I looked again, the lights were gone. I told myself it was swamp gas, or maybe a reflection from my taillights. But then, a few minutes later, they appeared again, closer this time. 4 of them, moving fast. They weren't headlights. Too small, too bright. They hovered low, drifting over the ditch beside me, matching my speed exactly. That's when I noticed the static getting louder. The radio was still off, but something hissed through the speakers, whispering words I couldn't make out. It almost sounded like someone breathing through the line. I tapped the mic and said, "Breaker 19, anybody on County 6 tonight?" Nothing, just static and that faint rhythmic breathing. After about 20 miles, the GPS said I'd rejoin Route 28 in 3 minutes. I almost laughed in relief. Then the signal cut out completely. The screen went black. The road curved sharply, and I nearly missed it. When I steadied the wheel, I noticed something new, a sign at the side of the road. Faded white letters barely visible in the beam. County RD6, dead end. That didn't make sense. The map, what little of it I saw, showed a clear connection to 28. I slowed down. The trees were thicker now, branches arching overhead like a tunnel. The air felt heavier, almost humming. That's when I saw movement ahead. The lights again, 3 of them this time, drifting across the road. They stopped dead center, glowing faintly through the mist. I hit the brakes hard, and the truck stalled. Everything went silent. The headlights flickered once, twice, then died. For a moment, the world was completely dark except for those pale, hovering lights outside. I swear they pulsed like they were breathing. My hands shook as I reached for the ignition. The key turned, but nothing happened, not even a click. Then, faintly, I heard something over the static. A voice, not through the radio this time. Inside the cab. Low, breathy, right behind me. Wrong road. I spun around, flashlight in hand. Empty. When I turned back, the lights were gone. Just pitch black wood stretching in every direction. The truck engine roared back to life on its own. The headlights snapped on. And the GPS, though it had been dead seconds ago, now showed a different route. The screen was pure white except for one red line, looping endlessly in a circle. I threw it in drive and floored it. Didn't care where I was going anymore. Just wanted off that road. When I finally burst out onto Route 28 again, the rain had stopped. The air smelled burnt like ozone. The GPS reconnected, showing I was only 5 miles from the delivery point. I didn't question it. I just drove. But when I checked my dash cam later, the footage skipped exactly 43 minutes. And in that gap, there's a single frame of bright white light filling the entire cab. and a handprint, muddy, smeared across the inside of the windshield. The next night, I wasn't supposed to drive, but dispatch called short notice. Another run, same region. I told him about County Road 6, said the GPS must have been glitched. The guy on the phone just laughed and said there's no such road listed anywhere in the system. That made my stomach drop. Still, I needed the work. The delivery was simple. Pick up lumber from a mill near Harlan. Drop it off by morning. I left around midnight again. The air was bone dry this time. Not a cloud in the sky. Half an hour in, I passed the same turnoff. The County Road 6 sign was gone. Just an empty post, sawed clean at the base. I told myself not to look, not to think about it. But as the highway stretched on, I noticed something strange. The smell of rain, faint at first, like wet asphalt, except the sky was perfectly clear. By the time I reached the halfway mark, I felt uneasy. I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see those lights again. Instead, I noticed something else, mud, on the passenger side floor mat. Thick, wet streaks like someone had stepped in with boots caked in soil. I hadn't stopped anywhere yet. I reached over with my flashlight, tracing the pattern. They weren't boot prints. They were small, barefoot. I pulled over right there on the shoulder, heart pounding. The engine hummed softly. The world outside was dead silent. When I opened the passenger door, the smell hit me again, wet earth like after a storm. But the air was dry, the road dusty. I leaned closer and saw something that froze my blood. A single drop of water fell from the ceiling of the cab, then another, and another, except it wasn't water. It was mud. Thin, dark streaks of it began to slide down the inside of the windshield. Slowly, I stepped back, shaking my head. No, no, no. Then the radio clicked on by itself. A low hiss, and then, keep driving. The voice was soft. Female, maybe, but the tone was wrong, like someone trying to mimic how people sound. I turned the radio off. It turned back on. You left me behind. That's when the lights appeared again. In the distance this time. Far up ahead, hovering low, waiting. I didn't want to go near them, but the road curved straight toward where they hung. The closer I got, the stronger that smell became. Wet dirt and something else decay. Every instinct told me to turn around. But when I checked the mirror, the road behind me was gone. Only blackness, like someone had erased it. The lights started moving then, sliding sideways across the field beside the road, pacing the truck perfectly. I could see shapes now within them. Silhouettes, people, dozens of them, walking through the grass in slow, uneven steps, all facing me. And in the glass of my side mirror, I saw one standing beside the cab. A girl, hair soaked, eyes hollow. She leaned close to the window and whispered something I couldn't hear. Her breath fogged the glass. And when she was gone, the word stayed, written backwards. Section B. I didn't understand it then, but I do now. The rest of the drive blurred together. When I pulled into the delivery site at dawn, the foreman asked if I had driven through the rain. I said no. He pointed to the truck. Mud streaked across the sides like I just plowed through a flooded field. But the weather reports that night said not a drop had fallen anywhere in the county. It's been 3 days since then. I haven't slept more than a few hours. Every time I close my eyes, I see that road again, those lights pacing the truck, and the whispering voice saying my name like it's trying to remember how. Dispatch called again tonight. Another emergency run. Same area. I almost said no, but something in me needed to know. If I don't finish this recording, you'll know why. The highway's empty tonight. No moon, no stars. Just that faint, gray glow ahead. Like dawn trying to push through too early. Around 1 a.m., I reached the same intersection where County Road 6 used to be. No sign, no marker. But when I slowed down, the GPS chirped on its own. Continue straight on County Road 6. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The screen was blank white again. And before I could react, the truck turned itself, steering wheel twisting right under my hands. The tires screamed as we hit dirt. And suddenly the road was back. Smooth black asphalt stretching into the fog. I should have stopped. I didn't. The lights appeared within minutes. this time all around me, circling. They pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat, faster, brighter, until the entire cab was washed in white. The radio hissed, and through it, a dozen voices began to speak at once. Men, women, children, all layered over each other. Keep driving. Almost there. No one leaves. My hands were locked on the wheel. The air inside was thick with the smell of rain. Mud dripped from the ceiling again, pooling at my feet. Then, through the windshield, I saw it. A rest area sign glowing faintly through the fog. Blue and white. Salvation. I pulled off the road, following the gravel path. There were lights in the distance. Lamps, maybe, and figures walking between them. They looked normal at first. Travelers, stretching their legs, standing by vending machines, until I noticed their faces. Gray, featureless, and their eyes, nothing but light. I stopped the truck. Didn't get out. Couldn't. The radio clicked one last time. You made it back. Then static. The figures turned toward me, all at once. Hundreds of glowing eyes, staring through the glass. And when they moved closer, the light around them started to flicker, bright, then dim, like a dying signal. I slammed the truck into reverse, but the tires spun uselessly. When I looked down, the road had vanished again. Just mud, endless. Sinking mud swallowing the wheels. I tried to scream, but the cab filled with light, blinding, searing white. And through it all, one voice whispered right beside my ear. There's no exit here. Then, silence. I woke at dawn to the sound of knocking. Police. They said they'd found my truck idling at the edge of a cornfield. No road nearby. No tire tracks leading in. Just deep grooves ending in soft soil. I told them I didn't remember leaving the highway. Didn't remember anything. They let me go after a few hours. Said I must have fallen asleep at the wheel. But when I checked the dash cam, the final frame shows me gripping the wheel, eyes wide, mouth open, and outside the window, those same lights. Only now they were inside the cab. Every night since, I've heard the static return. Low at first, just a hum in the walls. Then the voice again. County Road 6. Continue driving. And sometimes when the house is quiet enough, I swear I can hear rain falling inside the walls. I've worked at St. Michael's Hospital for over 10 years now. The kind of job nobody wants, but everyone needs maintenance nights alone. Most of the time, my shift's quiet. You can walk through the whole building after midnight and never see another soul. Just a buzz of old lights and the hum of machines keeping people alive upstairs. But last Thursday it wasn't quiet. The first sign of trouble came around 12:47 a.m. The hallway lights blinked once, twice, then everything went black. The silence that followed was heavier than the dark. Even the air felt still, like the building was holding its breath. I remember standing by the elevator when it happened, flashlight in hand, waiting for the hum of the backup generator. Usually, it kicks in after 3 seconds. That night, it took almost 10. I counted each one. When the lights finally flickered back on, they didn't come all at once. Just patches of glow, sickly yellow in the hallways, a weak red emergency beam cutting through the stairwell. But something was off. The pattern of lights didn't match the circuits. I'd done enough repairs to know which breakers fed which sections, and the way they were pulsing on, off, on again, out of order, it didn't make sense. It looked like the building was breathing. I went down to the lower levels to check the main generators. You have to take the service stairwell behind the laundry room. Most people don't even know it exists. As I descended, each step echoed longer than it should have. I kept glancing behind me, half expecting someone else to be there. The smell hit me halfway down. Dust and burnt wires, mixed with something metallic. The kind of scent that sticks to your throat. The generator room sits at the end of a long concrete corridor. It's not big, just 2 diesel units and a control panel older than I am. But when I opened the door, the light inside was wrong. It wasn't the usual harsh white from the fluorescence. Instead, the bulbs flickered between pale green and soft blue, almost like underwater light. The shadows rippled against the walls. For a moment, I thought it might just be my eyes adjusting. Then I saw it. One of the units was cycling off and on again. not completely powering down, just pulsing, like it was being controlled by something else. I tried the panel. The readings were unstable, jumping numbers faster than the sensors could process. I tapped the screen, adjusted the breaker, nothing. And then I heard it, a low, rhythmic sound, not mechanical, not from the engine. It was a voice, soft, muffled, like it was coming to the vent beside the generator. I froze, leaned closer. At first, I thought it was just feedback from the intercom system, but it wasn't static. It was whispering, words too faint to make out, repeating under the hum of the machine. I called out, "Hello? Who's down here?" No answer, just the same low whispering, a rhythm that matched the flicker of the light. I turned the flashlight toward the vent. Something shifted behind the grating. Not movement, more like a flicker of shadow deep inside the duct. My chest felt tight. I told myself it was just the airflow, maybe a loose flap in the ventilation. But when I stepped back, the whisper rose like it didn't want me to leave. I shut off the generator, but it kept humming. I remember standing there, staring at the dead switch, watching the blade spin slower and slower, refusing to stop completely. The lights dimmed, then steadied, and the whisper went quiet. I should have left it at that, reported it, blamed it on a short circuit or interference. But curiosity's a bad thing down there. It makes you look longer than you should. Before heading back up, I glanced once more at the vent. There was something written in the dust along the edge, like a finger had traced through it recently. 3 letters. Run. I laughed under my breath then, just a nervous reflex. But as I started up the stairs, the generator behind me sputtered once more, and I swear I heard the whisper again, faint, almost playful. Too late? I didn't look back. By the time I reached the main floor, the lights upstairs had stabilized, but the corridors still felt strange, like the building was watching. I signed the outage log, made a note to inspect the panels in the morning, and tried to forget about the whisper. Still, that night, even after I clocked out, the sound followed me. Every time my fridge hummed or the ceiling fan rattled, I could hear it beneath the noise, that same low rhythm, breathing and static. And deep down, I knew something in that generator room wasn't done with me yet. The outage was marked as a partial short, and no one questioned it. But I couldn't stop thinking about that whisper. I told myself I'd go back, just to make sure the circuits were grounded properly, just to ease my mind. It was 2 nights later when I finally did. The hospital was quieter than usual. The East Wing had been closed for renovations, which meant fewer staff on shift. By the time I reached the lower levels again, it was just me, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the distant sound of mop buckets squeaking across tiles somewhere far away. I unlocked the generator room. The air was cooler this time, still smelled faintly metallic. But the lights were steady now. No flicker, no hum. Everything looked normal. I checked both generators. The readings were perfect. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. Sleep deprivation, maybe. The brain can play tricks on you in quiet places like that. Then I noticed something strange. There was a 3rd power cable running out of the back of the panel, thick and dusty, older than the others, leading through a hole in the concrete wall. That line wasn't supposed to exist. I traced it with my flashlight until it disappeared behind a sealed maintenance door labeled Wing C Restricted. Wing C had been shut down since before I was hired. There had been a fire, records lost, insurance dispute, the usual bureaucratic mess. Nobody went down there anymore, but the cable was live. I should have stopped. I really should have, but I couldn't let it go. I grabbed my keys and opened the door. The hinges groaned like they hadn't moved in decades. A cold draft rolled out, carrying a smell of rot and old smoke. My light cut through dust thick as fog. The corridor beyond was lined with tiled walls, cracked and water-stained. A faded sign hung above the next doorway. Morgue hall. The temperature dropped the deeper I went. My breath came out in pale clouds. The cable led to a small room at the end of the hall. Inside were 2 rusted gurneys and a wall of drawers, body storage units, long sealed shut. But the cable didn't end there. It ran beneath one of the drawers. I pulled it open. Inside wasn't a body, just an old monitor, hooked up to the live generator feed. The screen flickered, static crawling across it. Then, out of the noise, an image formed. At first, it was just the hospital corridor. But then the picture tilted, like a camera being lifted. Someone, or something, was recording live, and it was standing right behind me. I turned so fast, I nearly dropped my light. Nothing there. Just empty hallway. Same peeling tiles. When I looked back at the monitor, the screen had gone black again. I should have left. I know that now, but I leaned closer instead. There was writing burned faintly into the screen's glass, backwards, like it had been printed from the inside out. It said, "Who kept the lights on?" I stumbled back, heart racing. The whisper returned. Only this time, I could make out words. "Don't turn it off." I yanked the cable free. The monitor died instantly. As I left the room, the drawers in the morgue wall began to rattle. Softly at first, then louder, one after another. The noise followed me down the corridor. By the time I slammed the door to Wing C shut, I could hear it echoing through the vents above me, that same whisper. When I got back to the generator room, the machines were running again, though I'd shut them off earlier that night. The hum vibrated through the floor, and somewhere deep inside it was laughter, low, mechanical, almost human. I didn't want to come back. But the hospital doesn't stop running just because you're scared. The lights flickered again 2 nights later, and I had no choice. When I opened the generator room, the air felt different, warmer, heavier, like it was breathing. Both units were running, though nobody had powered them on. The sound filled the space like a heartbeat. The panel lights pulse red. Every indicator said off. But the power readings were spiking higher than I'd ever seen. Something was feeding energy into the system from somewhere else. I took out my phone to record it, to show proof. But the moment I hit record, the screen glitched, static burst across it, freezing the image of the generator's vents. Then, through the speaker, I heard it again, my name, whispered, soft, over and over. Daniel. I froze. Nobody alive even used my full name here. Daniel, don't leave the light. The voice was coming from the vents. And then something inside them moved. I saw it, just for a second. A hand, pale and slick, pressing against a metal grate from the inside. Fingers long, too long. The steel bent outward as if it were breathing against it. I stumbled back, hit the panel hard enough to trip a breaker. The lights flared red. Every vent in the room began to hum, air pushing through them like lungs exhaling. And in that noise, dozens of voices rose, layered, distorted, calling out from somewhere deep below the hospital. "Don't cut the power. Keep us here." He kept them running. I ran for the stairs. But as I reached the first landing, the red light followed, flashing up the walls, spreading like veins. The hum grew louder. By the time I reached the upper corridor, the power had spread to the main floor. Red emergency lights glowed through every doorway, pulsing in sync with the generator below. And then I saw them, silhouettes in the hall. Not people, not anymore. Shapes of something half-burned, still smoking in the glow. Faces half-formed, skin blistered, eyes hollow. They were watching me, every one of them. Who kept the lights on? I turned and ran, past the elevators, through the staff lounge, out into the cold night air. The moment I stepped outside, the red glow vanished behind me. The hospital went dark. I looked back only once, just long enough to see the faint pulse of light through the basement windows, like the heart of something still alive. I quit the next day, but I can't sleep without the hum now. The silence feels wrong. Every night, when my house goes quiet, I hear it again, low, steady, almost comforting. The sound of the generator, still running, still waiting. And sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I hear that whisper again. Don't turn it off. The first thing you notice about midnight in East Hollow is the silence. It's not like daytime quiet, the kind you get in a small town with most people asleep. This is heavier, almost solid, like the air itself is weight. Even the usual hum of distant traffic seems muted, swallowed up by the darkness that stretches over the fields and broken streetlights. I pull my cruiser onto Main Street, headlights cutting through the black like twin searchlights. I've been on this shift for years, enough to know the rhythm of this town. Empty streets, flickering porch lights, the occasional dog barking far off. But tonight, everything feels stretched out, slower, waiting. I check the radio as I roll past the old gas station, the one that's been closed since the owner retired last year. Nothing but static. I expected that. There's rarely chatter this late, unless someone hits the wrong button by accident, or some kid thinks it's funny to mess with the scanner. A house catches my eye. Dark like all the others, but the curtains are slightly parted. I slow down, watching. Nothing moves inside. Just a faint reflection of the moon on the window. Still, my gut tightens. There's always something about windows at night. The way they can look like eyes staring back at you. Turning onto Elm Road, I spot a car parked halfway across the street. Doors wide open. The interior light blinking. No one inside. I stop and kill the engine, letting the cruiser settle into the quiet hum of the asphalt. I reach for the door handle, fingers brushing the cool metal. No keys in the ignition, no cell phone left behind, just empty seats and a faint smell of gasoline, like it was left running in a hurry. I radio dispatch. Unit 5, 2:14 a.m., Elm and Main. Empty vehicle with doors open. No visible occupants. Nothing, just static. I step back, my boots clicking softly on the pavement. The wind picks up, brushing against my jacket, carrying the faint scent of wet grass. It feels off. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it's the way the shadows move across the hood of the car. Or maybe it's just me, imagining shapes where there are none. After a minute, I get back in my cruiser, locking the doors. The lights flick on again as I roll forward, scanning the area. Nothing follows. Nothing moves. But I can't shake the feeling of eyes on me, just beyond the reach of the headlights. The road bends toward the cemetery. I always slow down here, even though it's just another routine check. The gate is chained, the tombstone's dark shapes against the night sky. I can see the occasional owl swooping silently between the trees. But sometimes something feels wrong. The shadows shift in ways they shouldn't. I tell myself it's just the angle of the light, or my tired eyes playing tricks. As I pass the cemetery, a car sits on the shoulder. Doors shut, but engine running. Odd. Considering the road doesn't really lead anywhere anymore. I tap the mic again. Unit 5, 2:23 a.m., idling vehicle on the east shoulder. No plates visible. Still nothing. I take the long way around the back roads, the ones that wind between cornfields and abandoned houses. The headlights catch the sides of the barns, the broken fences. Every house is dark, windows empty. Every car is parked like it's been abandoned mid-task. Doors closed, keys gone, lights off. Not a single movement. It's eerie, the way the town seems to vanish at night. Even the crickets are quiet tonight, replaced by the low hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. I reach an intersection where a car usually waits. Someone headed home from the diner, but it's empty tonight, just the fog rolling over the road. Sticking low to the asphalt, I slow down, feeling the cruiser's weight in the dark. Sometimes the emptiness gets under your skin. Makes you think you're not alone even when you are. That's when I see the first shadow that doesn't belong. I can't explain it. A figure, pale in the reflection of my headlights, standing at the edge of the field. Tall, thin, too still. I blink. When I look again, it's gone. But my stomach tightens and the hair on my arms rises. I know I didn't imagine the first glimpse. It was there, standing, waiting. I radio again, more out of habit than expectation. Unit 5, no response from dispatch. I'm continuing my patrol. The road curves sharply and a house comes into view. It's small, but the door is wide open, curtains flapping softly. I can see a chair push against the wall. The faint outline of someone. I hesitate, then I shake it off. Could be a cat, a breeze, anything. I make a note of my log. Open door, no lights, no response. The rest of the patrol is routine. I pass the school. Its windows dark and still. Playground silent, except for the occasional creak of a swing in the wind. I check the strip mall, empty parking lot. Everything is normal, except the silence. It's like the town's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I circle back toward the station. The cruiser headlights cutting through the black like knives. And I see more cars, abandoned, doors open, engines cold. Some newer models, which makes it stranger. Who leaves their car like this? And why now when the town seems empty? I roll the windows down. The air is cold, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and something else. Smoke, maybe, or just old leaves burning somewhere down the road. I can hear faint tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on metal. Could be branches, could be the wind. I tell myself it's nothing. I keep moving. By the time I get back to the station, it's nearly 3 a.m. I park the cruiser, shut off the engine, but I can still feel the emptiness pressing in. The lot is empty, the building dark. Even the streetlights outside are dim, flickering like they can't quite decide to stay on. I step inside and sign the log. All the routine checks. Houses, cars, roads. Notes about the open doors and abandoned vehicles. Nothing unusual, just another night. But the thing I can't shake, the feeling that someone or something was out there, watching, waiting. Maybe just a few feet from the cruiser at times I didn't see. Maybe standing at the edge of a field, pale and still, before vanishing when I blinked. I sit at my desk, staring at the log, and wonder how long the town has been like this. Quiet, empty, and yet alive in a way I can't explain. The clock ticks closer to 4 a.m., the last hour of my shift. I know I'll head out again soon, back onto the dark roads, checking the houses and the empty cars. The shadows will stretch and twist. The night will feel heavier than it should. And I'll keep driving because it's my job, because I have to. But something tells me tonight isn't over, not by a long shot. I didn't notice it at first. I mean, I knew dispatch could be glitchy, static on the line, missed check-ins, that kind of thing. But the deeper I dug into the logs from the previous nights, the more wrong it all felt. Something about the numbers, the names, the times, it wasn't right. It started when I was filing the midnight patrol reports. I cross-referenced the logs from my shift with the calls actually recorded in the system. That's when I noticed it. Several calls listed on the dispatch terminal never came through the radio. Not a single scratch of static. Not a Unit 5 copy. Nothing. Just entries. The first one caught my eye because of the timestamp, 2:14 a.m. That was the same time I'd found the empty car on Elm Road. The log entry was precise. Caller reports a vehicle abandoned on Elm Road. Name, L. Carmichael. Address, 12 Maple Street. Maple Street. I knew every resident on Maple Street. L. Carmichael didn't exist. I checked the town registry later that morning, thinking it was a new move-in. Nothing. No record. At first, I thought maybe it was an error, a mistyped name. Maybe a call from someone in a neighboring town routed incorrectly. But then I kept scrolling. Another call, 2:23 a.m. Caller reports lights flickering at Elman, Maine. Name, R. Holloway. Address, 8 Main Street. R. Holloway. No one in the town had that name. No record of it in the local census, not in utility files. Nothing. I felt the hair on my neck stand up. Mistakes happen in dispatch systems. Yes, but not this many. Not with the precision of the times lining up perfectly with my patrol notes. Every single entry coincided with something I'd noticed. An empty car, a dark house, lights that didn't make sense. I decided to go through the logs for the entire week. By the end of the night, I was staring at a long list of phantom calls. Reports from people who didn't exist. Times when the dispatcher had supposedly taken notes. But the radios never buzzed. Names, addresses, short descriptions of events that seemed plausible, too plausible. One in particular made my stomach twist. 3:11 a.m. Wednesday night. Caller reports figure standing at edge of the field by County Road 5. Name, S. Winthrop. Description, tall, thin, still. I didn't recognize the name, and I know I would have. East Hollow is small. Everyone knows everyone. But the description, that's exactly what I had seen the night before when I passed the field on my patrol. The tall, still figure reflected in the headlights. I leaned back in the chair and rubbed my face. That wasn't possible. The call hadn't gone through. Nobody in dispatch had taken it. But the log said otherwise, clear as day. I tried to tell myself it was coincidence, my mind playing tricks, Or maybe a glitch copying old entries into new logs. But then I noticed a pattern. The entries were all from the same few streets. Elm, Maine, County Road 5, a couple abandoned lanes nobody drives down at night. Places I knew intimately. And every single one listed a name that didn't exist. I pulled the paper roster of residents, crossed every name off the list. Then I started matching addresses in the log. Some weren't even houses anymore. One had burned down decades ago. Another had been empty for years. Yet the log claimed someone had called from each of them. The deeper I went, the more the entries seemed alive. Not just historical errors. They read like someone knew exactly what I'd see on my patrols, knew where the cars would be abandoned, where lights would flicker, even down to the small, personal details. The smell of gasoline in the empty vehicle, the curtains slightly parted at a darkened window. I started marking them on a map. Each phantom call a dot. By the time I finished, the dots formed a rough line following my patrol route, almost tracing the path I had driven. Not perfectly, a little off, like someone had walked just behind me while I made the rounds. I called dispatch. Just my luck, no answer. Static only. That low hum that always made me feel uneasy after hours. I checked the radios. Nothing. The console seemed normal, except for the logs. The phantom calls kept scrolling the terminal like a ticker, names and addresses appearing and vanishing in seconds, leaving me unsure if I'd actually seen them or imagined it. I leaned back in the chair, trying to slow my breathing. My hands shook, partly from the caffeine, partly from something else. An awareness that I wasn't alone, even though I knew I was. The station felt too quiet, the hum of the electronics too consistent, almost deliberate. Then one more entry appeared, right at the bottom of the log. Caller, D. Keaton. Reports lights pacing the vehicle on Elm Road. Time, 2:14 a.m. I froze. That's me. My exact words, my report, the call I had made to dispatch. The system had recorded it as someone else. Someone who doesn't exist. I stared at the screen. My name, my report, log is a phantom call, time-stamped, word for word. I try to rationalize it. Maybe the system is mirroring calls. Maybe it's recording duplicates. But my stomach told me something different. My hands gripped the desk. Someone was keeping track, recording everything I saw, everything I said, like they were anticipating me. The lights above flickered once, briefly, the hum and electronics deepening into something more like a growl. I glanced at the clock. 2:23 a.m. The exact time one of the phantom calls had come in the night before. Elm and Maine. Lights flickering. R. Holloway. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I stepped outside now, I'd see someone or something standing where the call had reported, waiting, just like the previous night. I tried to shake it off. Told myself it was a coincidence, some weird technical error. But the more I looked at the logs, the less comfortable I felt believing that. Every entry, every name, every address, it matched too closely with my own patrol. And the system, as far as I could tell, had no errors like this before. By 3 a.m., I was pacing the small office. Every tap of my boots on the tile sounded louder than it should have. I checked the window. Streets empty, houses dark. But even as I watched, I felt eyes on me. That old, gnawing sense of being observed. Then the console beeped again. Another log entry. Caller, unknown. Location, County Road 5. Reports figure standing at field edge. Description, tall, thin, still. Time, 3:01 a.m. I looked at the monitor. That figure, the same description, same line from the night before. And for the first time, I realized these aren't errors. They're messages, signals. Someone or something is using the dispatch system to communicate, or to watch. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk out of the station, go home, put this behind me. But curiosity and maybe fear kept me rooted. I needed to know what came next, even if I wasn't ready to face it. The clock ticked past 3:30. My shift was almost over, but I couldn't stop scanning the logs. Another entry appeared. Caller, D. Keaton. Reports phantom voices over radio. Time, 3:29 a.m. I froze. That's exactly what I was hearing earlier. The low static, the soft murmurs I couldn't place. Now the system was logging it as a call from someone else. Someone who doesn't exist. I shut off the radio, unplugged the console, but the logs kept scrolling. Names, addresses, times, entries I hadn't seen before, and all of them, in one way or another, connected to me, my patrol, my route, my eyes. By the time 4 a.m. came, I was exhausted, shaking, and deeply aware how alone I really was. The town outside the station still slept, unaware of the phantom calls circling its streets. And I realized something I couldn't ignore. The logs weren't just mistakes. They weren't random. They were waiting for me to see them, waiting for me to understand, and maybe waiting for me to make the next call. I should have known something was wrong the moment I climbed back into the cruiser that night. The air was thicker than usual, heavy and damp, carrying the faint scent of rain even though the sky was clear. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. The town was still quiet, too quiet, and for the first time, I noticed how the darkness seemed to press in close around the edges of the headlights, like it was alive, watching. I rolled onto Main Street, scanning the familiar houses, the empty cars, the boarded-up stores. Everything looked exactly like it had every night I'd patrolled, and yet something felt different. I couldn't put my finger on it. The radio crackled. At first, I thought it was another phantom call, another one of those entries in the dispatch logs that didn't exist. But this time, it was my own voice. Unit 5 requesting backup. Elm and Maine. Repeat, Elm and Maine. I froze, hand trembling on the wheel. That wasn't possible. That was my voice, my words, my tone, even the pauses, the slight hesitation after each sentence. I reached for the microphone. Unit 5 responding. There's nothing here. I'm alone. Check the coordinates. Nothing. Just static. And then my voice again, coming to the radio speaker, clear and calm. Unit 5 requesting backup. I backed the cruiser into a side street, heart pounding. My pulse felt like it was echoing in my ears. I checked the time. Midnight. Exactly midnight. And that's when I remembered something from the logs. Dispatch entries that never existed. Names that weren't registered. Addresses that didn't belong to anyone. Times that matched my patrol like a shadow trailing behind me. I pulled the notebook from the glove compartment, flipped through the pages, my own handwriting staring back at me. Elm Road, County Road 5, the empty cars, the dark houses, and at the bottom of every page, scribbled in the same hurried way I always logged my rounds, were the words I didn't remember writing. Unit 5 requesting backup. Repeat, Elm and Maine. I couldn't breathe. I slammed the notebook shut, shaking my head. This wasn't possible. I couldn't be. And yet, my own voice called again from the radio, calm, steady, insistent. Unit 5 requesting backup. Elm and Maine. I closed my eyes and tried to think. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe someone had hacked the system, mimicking my voice. But the town is small. Everyone knows everyone. And I've worked these shifts alone for years. No one else even comes near the station at night. I remember the first report I ever filed on these roads. Years ago. The abandoned cars, the dark houses. I remembered logging the phantom calls that never existed. And now, they were all here in the air and the wires and the static. A shiver ran down my spine. The town outside hadn't changed. But I had. Something was wrong with me. Something was wrong with how I existed here. I started driving, slowly, cautiously, down the roads I knew by heart. Elm, Maine, County Road 5. The same route I had patrolled for years. Every turn, every curve, felt like it was guiding me towards something I didn't want to see. And then it hit me. The logs, the phantom calls, the fact that my voice had been coming through dispatch for months, maybe years, while I thought I was still making my rounds. I pulled over and shut off the engine, trying to think, trying to remember the last time I had actually left the station alive. And the memory, it wasn't there, not clearly, just flashes, headlights on wet asphalt, the hum of the radio, the chill of the wind down Elm Road, flashes that felt like memories but didn't have the warmth of life behind them. I reach for the radio again, trembling, voice barely a whisper. Dispatch, this is Unit 5, do you copy? Silence, then static, and then my voice. Calm, clear, asking for backup. Exactly like I had said it 1,000 times before. I stepped out of the cruiser. The night air was cold, biting. Every sound seemed amplified. The rustling of leaves, the distant drip of water from a gutter, the soft sigh of wind over the fields. The emptiness of the streets pressed in closer than it should. I walked toward the field at the end of County Road 5, where I had seen the figure before. Tall, thin, unmoving. I remembered the phantom call from S. Winthrop. Description: tall, thin, still. I had thought it was a report from someone else. Someone watching, but now I realized it was me, or at least what I had become. The field stretched out in front of me, pale in the moonlight, and there I was. Not me exactly, not a live me, a version of me standing at the edge of the field, silent, still, waiting, watching. I tried to speak, but no sound came. My own lips moved, but the words were carried away in the wind before they reached my ears. The version of me in the field, my voice, coming through the radio, calling for backup, over and over, every midnight, every patrol, every shift. I thought I was alive. I stumbled backward, heart racing, my hands pressed to my face. I remember the entries in the dispatch logs, the phantom calls from names that didn't exist, the addresses of abandoned houses, the empty cars, and then I understood. I've been the ghost on the other side of the radio all this time, the one still calling, still logging, still reporting. My patrols, they never ended. Not really. Not after that night years ago, when I don't know when it happened exactly, only that the body stopped moving, only that the radio kept working, only that my voice never left. I walked back to the cruiser, trying to wrap my mind around it. Every road, every turn, every darkened house. It was all recorded, all noted, all repeated. My own hands had filled the logs with reports from people who didn't exist, addresses that didn't exist, times that didn't exist. Except for me. I turned the key in the ignition, but nothing happened. The engine was silent. The lights were dim. Only the radio hummed softly, my voice crackling through the speaker. Unit 5 requesting backup. Elm and Maine. Repeat. I gripped the wheel, heart pounding. I remembered every shift I thought I had driven, every call I thought I had made, every time I signed the log, wrote down a note, listened to dispatch, and heard nothing in return. All of it, me, dead and still patrolling, caught in a loop that never ends. The moonlight stretched across the asphalt, long and pale. Shadows flickered. I looked down the empty streets, and I could see the paths I had driven for years, the routes I had followed faithfully. Every car, every house, every dark corner, every whisper of the wind. Everything remembered me, and I remembered it. And still, my voice came through the radio, calm, insistent. The same words I'd always said, Unit 5 requesting backup, Elm and Maine. I realized then that the town never stopped. It never needed me alive. My presence was important. Only my voice mattered. Only the patrol mattered. Only the logs mattered. I sat in the cruiser, alone but not alone. The night stretched out forever. The streets stayed empty, and my voice kept calling, over and over, every midnight, every year, every patrol, until someone alive, finally answers. But they never do, and so I drive, or at least I think I do. I listen, I log, I call for backup that never comes. My shadow stretches long across streets that no longer exist on maps. My hands grip, or will I no longer feel. And the radio hums my voice through the night, past the living, past the dead, past anything that could call it real. I am here, I am listening, and I am still calling.